You've been in the public health field 40 years?
Oh, actually 50 probably.
50 years. Talk a little bit about your background.
I was born in New York, grew up in Western Pennsylvania. I've always had an interest in healthcare issues, particularly related to my aunt, who I'm named after.
So you started out your university education intending to be in public health?
No, actually I did not. In fact, I was one of these people that had really no direction of what I wanted to do in my life. You know, we had no money, so it was just really a matter of finding what opportunities would be available. And my sister had tried to become a medical technologist. She ended up not being able to go to that school, so I ended up going because it was something that they paid you to do rather than having to pay to go to school. Everybody wanted me to become a nurse, but I didn't want to be a nurse.
So you started out as a medical technologist. Did you work in that field?
Yeah, I did. Actually, it was right after high school. It was planned that way, and so I started. It was a couple months after I graduated, and it was a very small class, but it was the first ASCP-approved School of Medical Technology in that area.
And then what?
It started out as a one-year program, then ended up being a two-year program. But I found that, well, it was interesting, but I just felt there was a limit on what I could do. I was really wanting to take advantage of whatever opportunities I had, and there was one to go to school, University of Pittsburgh, at Greensburg campus. And that's where I started out in a night class. As I took classes, my interest increased, and so I took more classes and ended up decreasing the amount of work I was doing and increased the amount of school I was doing.
Then you moved to Massachusetts and you enrolled there?
Interest I had was in having a job when we moved to Massachusetts, and so I had a couple opportunities. Actually had 2 or 3 jobs that I had started in, and then began going to school again, but this time at University of Massachusetts. Dr. Darity, who is the head of the University of Massachusetts School of Public Health, he's the one that called me into his office and was really quite irritated I was there because he had observed that there are many people that were taking courses but not really serious about their work. And he felt I was somebody that had a lot of potential but was really wasting his time by just taking one course at a time. And so he was the one that encouraged me to take more courses. And I was always fairly pragmatic, and so I wanted to do what was quick and easy, what would get me a degree fast. And so I planned on getting a degree in medical technology. And he said, no, don't do that. And of course I was disappointed because I wanted something fast and quick. But he encouraged me to get involved in coursework that had to do with people. He said that was where my skill was. And as it turned out, that was really the most wonderful thing for me. It was like being struck on fire. For the first time, I had such excitement about a job or about an avocation, and was absolutely thrilled to be doing what I was doing. And with his encouragement, I was able to finish that degree, and I graduated first in my class. I had an opportunity to work as a caseworker in Madison County, which is where the welfare department was at the time, in food stamps, and that was the first position I took. And I have to say, in all my career, it was probably one of the hardest positions I had because of the intensity of policy decisions and policy pressures that are on you. I was there for about 6 months, and then had an opportunity to go to Northeast Mental Health Clinic to be a mental health educator. It was a wonderful opportunity because there were people there that saw what potential I had and were very encouraging. I did that for about 2.5 years. And in the course of that time, I was promoted to a position at the state level, state mental health educator. I was at that position when they did finally get there, for about 6 months. One of the disappointments of working in state government is that it's really very directive. I did not bloom in that. I like to work with people and I like to get things done. And the only way to do that is when you're working in a community directly. I had the opportunity then to become a community health educator with Health Planning Council. And at the time, I'd never had such an experience before, and it was new. And primarily what I was doing was working with groups of people to help them make decisions on what was best for their area. And I so much enjoyed working with the people, helped me blossom. As it turned out, director there was in the process of leaving, and they were forming a new health systems agency under federal law. And I did that on an interim basis. And it was a good thing for me. I had no idea what I was doing, but it was a very good opportunity. So much enjoyed getting to know all the people. That was the biggest strength I had, was networking and getting to know people and getting people excited about what they were doing. Very early days, health systems agencies were there to help communities make decisions on how to best allocate their healthcare resources. What was best, what was needed, what wasn't needed. When you figure the intensity of the people involved, a lot of them were healthcare providers, others were consumers of healthcare, and so it was quite politically charged, yes. After that, I started going to school at University of Nebraska in the Executive MBA program, opportunity for education there. So that's what I did. There was an opportunity to apply for being director of the Lincoln-Lancaster County Health Department. I chose to apply, and it was really the encouragement of people that made me apply. I don't know that I would have by myself.
And you were in that position for how long?
17 and a half years. When I took over, they were in the process of dismantling the agency, and there were continuing declines in the budget. We had 88 staff people, and in 5 years, we grew to 200 staff people and a budget that was well in excess of what we would ever have dreamed about. I would say the biggest accomplishments were community engagement, of getting people excited about what opportunities we had and getting them motivated to do what they felt needed to be done in order to improve things in Lincoln and Lancaster County. I've always been kind of someone that likes to meet challenges. And when I was hired for that job, I was hired on a split vote of the City Council, County Board, and Board of Health. And that's, puts you in quite a political situation. Half the staff would not even speak to me when I got to the department. That was how charged it was. The person that I was competing against was the acting director at the time. But we were able to turn things around. I encouraged the Board of Health and all of the politicians to get behind what we were trying to do. And we were able to really make a tremendous change. I began doing work with the U.S. Conference of Local Health Officers, which is associated with the U.S. Conference of Mayors, as well as the National Association of County Health Officials. And those two organizations ended up merging. And I was one of the key people in enabling that merger. And at the time, we had about 2,000 health departments that were members. And so I began there in leadership positions and continued that until 1997, when I became president of the National Association of City County Health Officials.
After you left Lincoln Lancaster?
I had an opportunity to apply at Public Health Solutions in Crete, Nebraska, to be director of that agency. And it was a small rural health department. And I had decided that after I left Lincoln Lancaster, that if I was going to do that again, I would go to a rural department. And that's where I would try to do my work, because that was what was really needed, was work in the rural areas. I was there 11 years, actually.
It's no secret you were a public official and that sometimes the winds blew against you.
Oh, yeah.
What do you say you'd learned out of the fact that a popular leader was sort of unceremoniously deposed from the Lincoln Lancaster County Health Department.
Well, it was a very hard thing for me, but it was a wonderful opportunity to learn the principle of humility. When you're in a position like that, a lot of people want things from you, and they count on having influence with you. And sometimes you can be deluded in thinking that has something to do with you personally, but it does not. It's really people's interest in what you can do for them. So it was disappointing, but also it's one of the realities of life. As anyone goes through time, you'll find that that's what we all learn. You know, we never end our careers or end our lives in the epitome of wonderment. We don't. It just doesn't happen that way. It didn't happen that way for Jesus. It didn't happen that way for Martin Luther King or to John Kennedy. It just doesn't happen that way.
At Public Health Solutions, what do you think your major accomplishment was?
That was another situation where I took on a job that was very, very challenging. The Board of Health and the staff were at odds. Being able to keep that together was really a major accomplishment. And of course, I had experience doing that at Lincoln Lancaster as well. I had hoped that I would be able to move it along faster than I ended up being able to move it along. I thought that I would be able to accomplish whatever I needed to do in 5 years, and it ended up not being the case. It took me more like 7. I think that the major accomplishment I had was in being able to change people's thinking about what public health was. And at the time, the Institute of Medicine report was being issued, and that changed people's attitudes also about what public health was there to do. You know, when I initially started in public health, but there's no guide on how you operate a health department. In fact, only 5% of the directors in the country were women, and most of them were physicians. So there was not really any good template for how you were to propose to go forward. It was a matter of having to find your way. And then when there were others developing thinking in public health, mainly through the Institute of Medicine report, that was the big change for public health.
If you were to write a history of public health as you experienced it, what would be major themes that you would identify?
Major themes would be that it's been an area marked by weakness among health departments, by over-reliance on tradition, old school. I was always different in my philosophy. I saw health departments as change agents for the community. That was my big excitement, and that's what was the key to my success. That health departments are there to make things better for people, and that's in fact what we did. I had many opportunities to do that. When you have a Board of Health, you have a definite opportunity to do that. As they began eliminating boards of health, then the opportunities for doing that decreased, because then you had pretty much concentration of power in political entities deciding what public health should be. You know, they would make decisions based on what would be of benefit to them rather than what would be of benefit to the community itself.
What about funding issues?
Oh, funding issues. That was one of my favorites. Community engagement is the key to getting good funding. And when I talk about community engagement, I'm primarily talking about the importance of boards of health. They're the ones that direct what the orientation will be to the department or to the community. There were a lot of, in a political environment, there are a lot of, the politicians have a lot of interests in their own areas, some of which don't include Board of Health directed agency. And so we were always at odds with the mayor or other elected officials. So we had to kind of maneuver our way through politics and through community engagement to get funding. We were able to increase our funding dramatically from, I think at one point we had 2% of the budget to 6% of the budget for the city and county, which is really remarkable. I use the annual meeting as an illustration of the growth in our political power. The very first annual meeting we had of the Board of Health, we had 7 people there. 5 years later, we had over 200. And that was a mark of really what the significance and the success of our department had been. It was the place, it was the agency to be in. We had a tremendous influence on what eventually happened in Nebraska in the formation of the legislation that allowed for the creation of local health departments and for a system of local health departments. A lot of people, when they get into positions like being head of a health department or whatever, they're somewhat timid. They don't want to, rock the boat. They want to please people. Well, when I went to the School of Public Health under Dr. Darity, what I began to understand is that what you're trying to do is to engage in community change. And if you're able to do that in a way that even results in your being fired, and if it's for the right reason, that's a wonderful thing. That's a moment of being proud that you're able to do something for the community that is not for you personally, but is for the community itself. And so that's how I operated. So I was never worried when I was confronted by various people that felt that I was getting too high on the hog. Always proceeded with the challenge of what I felt was important to do. Boards of health across the country are declining in their strength. I don't think that there's a state agency anymore that's really under the strong control of a board of health. So that means that there's been a concentration of power with the governor. And then it ends up being a very political decision-making matrix. And decisions are made purely on politics and not necessarily on what's important for people. I like to think of public health as being the ultimate in democracy, because you're engaging people and making decisions about their own lives and about their communities. And that is not the way we're going as a country. It appears that we have much more concentration of power, much more concentration of power within individuals. There's almost a giving up of the citizenry on what their strengths are. The power of communities is with the people, but most people don't realize that or have renounced it or have let it go. But they have the power, and they are not using it. And so therefore, you have political concentration, and those people are the ones that make decisions. And many times, they're not in the interests of the community. I love public health, and it was my life. But I have to say that I'm glad that I'm not going to be there, because I don't think I would want these kinds of fights, because I think they're almost, I don't think they're winnable right as they are now.
If you were to advise somebody who's getting into the public health field right now, what would you tell them?
I would tell them to decide what they think is important, not for themselves, but for the community, and to enable the community to do what it chooses to do, whatever that may be. A lot of people, when they get into public health, have an idea about what should be done. Oh, you shouldn't smoke, and you shouldn't do this, or you shouldn't drink too much pop. None of that works. People don't want to be told what to do. They want to make decisions for themselves. That's the strength of our country. And that's what we should want to do, is to enable people to do what they think needs to be done. That's the strength that we have. And when there's so much reliance now of people on others, they think that they have to look to others to make change. And they're the only ones that can make change. People are. And many of them are choosing not to do anything. They have lost their way. I think this is probably more true in areas where there's more poverty. Rural places, there's more of an opportunity for people really striking out on their own. That was one of the reasons why I stayed in Nebraska, because Nebraskans felt that they could decide for themselves what should be done. And when you don't make those decisions for yourself, when you're relying on others, then you become very weak, and you get what everyone chooses to give you, which is often nothing. So much that I would like to say about public health. I always liked to do what was right, and when I had an opportunity to do so, it was always exciting to me. And I had some pretty tough challenges at times, but I enjoyed it. And I have many notches probably on my community gun of things we were able to do, of battles that we were able to win on behalf of people. We were able to increase the number of the number of kids that were getting care. We were able to decrease the infant mortality among people of color. We were able to increase the quality of the environment. We were able to increase the economic vitality of our communities. We did many, many things. And I say we, I did not. We did it.
I remember back in the early 90s when Mrs. Clinton was working on a healthcare realignment.
Yeah.
She came to visit. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. It was a very exciting thing for me to meet her and to have the leadership there. What she was looking for were what are the kinds of things that work, and what we showed her was how communities can accomplish great things to improve health by working together, and that's what we showed her by our partnership with the medical society, state medical society, local medical society, the health department, and the state agencies as well. It was that partnership that enabled us to make change, and that's what she admired, and that's one of the ideas that she took back. And I was very pleased with that. A lot of people would say, oh, well, Jane's going to end up in Washington. I had no interest in being in Washington. To me, where the action is in communities. It was unfortunate she wasn't able to bring to pass some of the ideas she had, but it's a process that we're all involved in. It's a very, very complex process.
Anything else?
When I was growing up, I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself as a person. And it was the people that saw something in me that I did not see in myself that are responsible for the successes I've had in my life. And I've had many successes in my life, and I'm very proud of them. But I have to attribute them to others. There's so many people that made a difference for me. And that's why I believe in any programs that encourage mentorship. That is the key to enabling people to succeed in life, is mentorship, seeing in them things that they might not see in themselves. And that's a particular skill I have as a director. I'm not a bossy director as much as I am a director that sees the strength in others and is able to bring that out.